smell, touch, hearing, sight, taste. These are our direct connections to the world, and our five sense organs, in a sense, work like sensors that connect our brain to the outside world, but our brain interprets them so well that it seems as if our senses are directly connected to objective, clear, without hearing. With my eyes, we say we won't believe it until we see it, but we trust it very. This is perhaps man's biggest mistake. Our five sense organs actually cause us to have a very twisted connection with the complex reality of the outside world. The real reality is ours. Since we can perceive it with our senses, we can use it to our advantage and become a violin virtuoso just by thinking, make abdominal muscles from where we sit, perform seemingly impossible calculations. Can do it in our minds, bending reality. I will tell you about some studies if you are ready. Our brain, which is in the dark inside our skull, is connected with these senses. It tries to understand what's going on by interpreting the imperfect electrical signals that come in. Then the neurons go to work interpreting what's going on and how we should react accordingly, trying to understand. Don't get me wrong, this system is one of the most optimized and efficient systems possible, and it also did a very good job of ensuring that our ancestors were not eaten by savages. Has done a job. But we also know that it is very easy to deceive the human brain with very simple optical illusions, hallucinations, and different states of consciousness. In fact, when our brain creates a picture of the outside world, it adapts countless patches to the imagination. These fabrications create changes in the human body that we cannot predict, for example. It was thought that the brain would be a deceptive virtual reality. Today, when we say virtual reality, although we think of games, we actually see virtual reality applications in the medical. There is a type of treatment called VRT. Although virtual reality therapy is generally used for neurophysiological problems such as phobias and post-traumatic stress disorders, the scope of this application is much broader. For example, Hunter Hoffman, David Patterson, and Sam from the University of Washington researchers named Shar have been using this VR treatment on patients with advanced burn wounds since 1996. You can imagine that these patients are in incredible pain. What we call pain is a neurological reaction directly related to psychology, and the placebo effect is frequently used in burn treatments. The patient is confident that the treatment to be used will work. It is very important to believe. Especially in burn patients, the event that caused their burns constantly flashbacks in their minds. Since it rotates like this, the intensity of the pain increases in direct proportion to it. The thoughts of the researchers we mentioned was this: if patients can be made to believe that they are cold, their pain will also be relieved, will decrease. For this, we use a virtual reality game called Snow World to experience a particularly painful process. They were allowed to change bandages, walk on glaciers, play with penguins, etc. And they said that they actually felt much less pain than normal. This is only based on patients' feedback. It is not related. It is also proven by subsequent imaging techniques such as fMRI. There is a brain exercise commonly used in Japan. It is a mental equivalent of the physical abacus. We can say that this technique, known as Anzan, is the practice of making quick and accurate calculations with a mental abacus. In 2012, for example, Naomi Ogasawara became the world mental calculation champion using this technique. He also demonstrates these skills in a competition known as Flash Anzan. Here people are shown 15 three-digit numbers on the screen for a moment, and the contestants try to remember these 15 numbers and add them as quickly as possible using the abacus in there. Although it may seem like that, it actually shows us how far the limits of the human brain are. He says it might be difficult. And we can also see this in activities that require physical effort in musicians and athletes. Normally, of course, having an instrument is very important for someone who plays an instrument. Isn't it good? But it turns out that having a mental copy of the instrument can have the same effect, and musicians have been aware of this since long before scientific research. For example, Matthew and Sandra Blackley, a case is mentioned in his 2007 book, The Body Has a Mind of It Is Itself. A violin virtuoso goes to prison for a reason, and this musician, during the 7 years he spent in prison, he practiced in his mind every day without his violin. And on the evening of his release, this violinist, who received his real violin, performed a much more magnificent violin concert than before he was imprisoned. Mental practice had helped him maintain and even improve his fine motor skills. The strange thing is this: these people are already musicians. They need to practice mentally. You may think it is easy, but a study by Alvaro Pascal Leone from Harvard Medical School reveals something very interesting. After determining the group and showing only some finger movements on the piano and how to press the keys, he divides this group into two. One group gets 2 hours of real time for a week. As a result of the study, while practicing on the piano, he asked the other group to practice the piano only mentally. Imaging of the brains of both groups shows that the same regions of the brains of those who practice both physically and mentally change in the same way. It seems that the brain he doesn't really understand the difference. He thinks that if you can simulate the movement very strongly in your mind, your brain is more striking. I would like to mention another example. This time our topic is sports. In 2004, a group of researchers from the Cleveland Clinic Foundation decided to conduct a study. What they are trying to find out is whether the mental practice of a certain physical activity creates a change in that part of the body. That is, when you think you are working out your arm muscles can actually develop. Isn't it ridiculous? Now, researchers identify 3 groups here. One group moves one finger left and right. The second group does nothing. The third group imagines moving its finger left and right, and the experiment continues for 12 weeks. The result of the experiment is very interesting. A 53% increase in finger strength was observed in the first group that actually moved their finger. There was no change in this finger in the group that did nothing, but the fingers of those in the group that imagined moving their finger regularly showed an average 35% increase in strength is observed. They managed to convince their brains that his finger was moving. As you can see, the brain gave an appropriate physical response. Isn't it very strange? Of course, this is not the only example. A similar study was conducted in Canada in 2007. This time, the hip muscles are targeted. Here too, a group of people works on their hip muscles by lifting weights, and as a result, a 28.3% increase in strength is achieved. In the group that thinks that they lift weights and exercise their hip muscles, an average strength increase of 23.7% is observed in the hip muscles. When you train your brain right, a perfect simulation of real physical activity in your brain perceives this as reality, and not only does it create physical sensations in your body accordingly. This connection creates changes. This is exactly how the physical changes occur with these mental exercises. It is still not fully solved, but neuroscientists they are. In summary, this and countless other examples tell us something. We are not using our brain correctly enough. We can actually fool it when the motor neurons in our brain can get enough electricity from our mental exercises. It seems like the minions send it to strengthen the muscles in our body, but as we said, the details of this are still not clear. However, only the results of our imagination can produce results that are not imaginary at all. Even if there is no recipe for this, one of the most important inferences we should get from here is this: you are much more than you are now, and thought and imagination organize your world correctly and think your thoughts correctly. You can direct it and witness incredible changes both in your own body and in your life. Thank you for listening to me. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment for your daily motivational notifications. Stay alive.